we have Ilya with us. He's an expert when it comes to cold outreach. He has worked with Lemlist and now he's working at Expandy. Both of them, they focus on cold outreach. And today I wanted to pick his brain regarding cold outreach, the best strategies on how to employ cold outreach to grow your business, to generate more leads and to get more clients, to take action on the offer that you have. So without further ado, hello, how are you doing, Ilya, first of all?
Hey, it's nice to meet you. Thanks a lot for having me today. I'm pretty fine and all good. How about you?
All good, all good. So this conversation, this interview started off from a cold email. So we have been connected for quite a long time, but our connection has been a little bit dormant. So I've sent you a couple of emails and I reached out to you on LinkedIn. And there we go. We got started. We started the conversation about you hopping on a quick call today to brief us about cold outreach. So for sure, cold outreach works, but maybe you can share a little bit your story, how you get started with cold outreach, maybe some insights, some tips, some errors that you keep on seeing that others are doing. And maybe you can guide us on who can benefit from cold outreach. Let's get the conversation going and see what tips and strategies we can get out of you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like back in days when I joined my first startup as a marketer or salesperson, like as a T-shaped marketing sales growth hacker, something like this. We tried so many different channels. Actually, I guess that every single channel that you can tell and you can say we tried it. And of course, we tried call the email and call LinkedIn outreach, all this outbound game. And back in the days, like I was preparing emails and it was, the shittiest emails you've ever seen. The most overused, templates from HubSpot blog from 2015. I reused it again and again and didn't work. So whenever you say cold email works or cold outreach works, I would say to you, not always. Whenever you use some, outdated email templates or cold email templates or cold LinkedIn outreach templates, it doesn't work. Okay, then use, super old generic approaches, it doesn't work. So at the end of the day, it didn't work for us pretty well because we were like really bad at that. We were just newbies. But after that, after trying and failing again and again, after learning a lot, we like dive deeper into how to run cold email campaigns actually at that like back in days, and it worked pretty well for us. We started with better personalization, and when it comes to better personalization, it actually means finding more information about your potential clients, about your like email list, finding some hooks. How can we find and preparing icebreakers based on some extra information. And after that experience of working with cold emails and so on and so forth, I joined the product and the team who is actually building the software for cold emailing. I joined Lemlist back in days, I know, like 5 years ago, and was working there for like a few years where I was creating the content. I was running cold emails from like myself. I was working with lots of people. Like I saw so many different use cases, and in some use cases, cold emails were like just brilliant. I mean, like you couldn't even believe how much money did people generate just because of sending one cold email to like a super specific niche and narrow group of people. And after that, like just recently I joined, like had like one more experience at Polytron helping different companies, and we implemented cold outreach as well. And like a few months ago I just joined Expandy. That's more like a LinkedIn automation software with the ability to send like multi-channel and omni-channel outreach using email, but with a really huge focus on LinkedIn outreach, I guess, with the most powerful set of features. Yeah, that's briefly my experience with cold email outreach and with cold LinkedIn outreach.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of things, and I would like to go back to some of the things that you mentioned. So you mentioned personalization. And for someone who has never tried cold outreach, email or LinkedIn, that may sound quite a lot of work. So do I have to learn a lot of things about my prospect? Do I have to modify each and every email? Does that make sense, the time that I have to spend on, learning about potential prospects?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When say personalization, usually people mean different things, to be super honest with you. The thing is that there are different, layers of this personalization. And the very first and the ground layer, like fundamental of personalization, is you need to speak the same language as your audience is speaking. So just the example, probably a stupid example, but you will understand the logic. There is a contact on LinkedIn. Contacts are on LinkedIn. That's easy. But for recruiters, people on LinkedIn are potential talents. For a biz dev, they're potential partners. For sales, there are potential leads and prospects and so on and so forth. For marketers, there are potential, co-marketing and collaboration opportunities and so on and so forth. So people just use different words for the same word, like LinkedIn contact, or email or something like this. People use different words, and usually it works like this. And the very, very first ground level, like the level 0, step 0, you need to speak and understand the ideal customer profile and fundamental, levels of who your client is, like who your ideal client is. It's super, super important to start speaking the same language as they speak. Because, whenever you understand that you're talking to some, enterprise market, bank sphere, head of development, you should use specific language, and this language should be like totally different from what you're using to reaching out to founders of early stage startups with the business background, not the technical background. That's the first, or it's level 0. Then the next step is actually you need to understand the real pain and the real problem that they potentially have and that you are potentially solving, right? That's the next step of personalization. And when we say about it, just the understanding of, okay, what are the problems of this specific problem or of this specific person within this specific niche on this specific stage, and can you help somehow? Whenever you understand it, and it's not just general pitch where you say, hey, we are doing LinkedIn outreach. Yeah, just use us. But when you understand that, for example, the sales teams with 10 people and the VP of sales or sales director has a huge issue with understanding who is performing in his or her team and who's not performing. That's real hard to understand. So you need to have a better reporting and better synchronization with your CRM. That's the actual pain that you have. For you, it's not the pain to send cold emails or cold outreach. For you, the pain to understand the results and understand what's going on there. That's the pain. Whenever you understand the pain, okay, that's the next step, understanding the pain. And the third step, it's actually the personalization when it comes to, okay, what do I use as custom variables within my text, within my cold email or cold LinkedIn outreach template. So the basics are first name, company name, industry, job title, everything like this, and you can always use it. It's definitely okay whenever you did a really good job with the first steps, with understanding the audience, using the same language and understanding the actual problem. But you cannot really hook and catch people's attention just by using first name, job title, and so on and so forth, because you'll be always the same for different people. What we usually do and what we usually recommend is to try to find something really, really specific to this list of people. So for example, whenever you reach out to companies who, for example, just a stupid example, but you'll also understand the logic, you are the SEO agency who is working and helping tech companies, small and medium startups, usually who raised money, right? And who want to scale their SEO coverage and the organic awareness. You understand their pains, you understand, okay, what is their language, you understand who you should talk to, right? And okay, what is the best way to reach out to them? What is the best way to, okay, you have all the startups or all the tech companies somewhere, and you want to have only specific niche, specific narrow niche of companies, your potential clients. What you can do is actually try to find companies who raised money recently, during the last year, and right now are hiring for SEO specialists in-house or remotely. And okay, that's proves that these people are you have a much higher chance to win these deals whenever they reply to you. But the second thing is you always have the hook or icebreaker to actually reach out to them. When I say, hey, Carl, hey, Helen, hey, I know someone, hey, first name, I saw that you are you're just you recently raised money at company X. Congratulations, pretty awesome. I also saw that you're just hiring for SEO specialists. It's pretty amazing. I took a look at your website, and your domain authority is growing over the last few years, but just feels like you need to have more power. We can help you. We already did this with some famous names that you probably know who work much better. Of course, you can skip these 2 lines, but with those 2 lines, hey, you're simply raised money, and now you're looking for the SEO specialist. I took a look at who you're looking for exactly, and it feels like we as an agency can help you because we actually do this. It always makes the presentation better, and it always works better. The thing is that with the first 2 steps, it's easy. It's your understanding of the market. it's your understanding of the pains, right? Understanding of the language that people use. Then the third step is actually using this, first name, last name, like some basics that you always get, like whenever you use any tool, like a LinkedIn Search Navigator, and then you scrape, the results of this LinkedIn Search Navigator and get emails, you get some basics and fundamentals, fundamental variables, fundamental, data about your clients, which is okay. But when it comes to the next step of finding this one or two common things for a really, really narrowed list of companies or people, it's becoming harder. So with the first stack, you already can become successful. But for another one, you need to do an extra job for researching. Right now, hopefully, there are so many tools that you can use and leverage to get this information. For example, you need to find companies who are looking for SEO specialist or for Python developer. If you're like a Python dev shop, agency, you can go to Glassdoor and then you use Apify to scrape the Glassdoor, right? Or, okay, you have a list of companies, but you need to find their head of marketing, right? And their LinkedIn account and so on and so forth. You can use AppScript in Google Sheets and ask GPT to create a simple code that will use programmable search engine like Google and will fill this up everything. So actually, right now, like, yes, it's not that easy. I mean, you can, but fundamental stuff you already got in by default settings, let's say it like this. But the next level, those hooks, icebreakers, something like this, it's a bit harder to do, but you still can do this. I'm writing a lot about this, to be honest, on the blog, and with the step-by-step guides on how people can do this. But at the same time, that's something super, super general that everyone can use. Like, people are hiring for someone and so on and so forth. But at the same time, if you're doing, for example, LinkedIn outreach, you can get this specific hook generator by default. So for example, you can reach out to people who actually engaged with your posts, who liked or commented on your post, and reach out to a specific list of people, for example, only to sales directors who engaged with your content for the last 90 days. That's already the hook. Or you can, for example, reach out to your specific audience who's attending a specific LinkedIn event, for example, like a LinkedIn webinar, and you're reaching out only to them. You always say, hey, we are attending the same webinar about sales and marketing synchronization, blah, blah, blah. Let's discuss, and so forth. By default, we offer that, but at the same time, you can do so many things with different tools.
From my understanding, if you don't follow this, if you don't personalize it, you will easily get trapped into spam. You will look like spam because you're reaching to everyone. Excuse me, and it will look like, from the person who's reading your message or your email, it looks like, hey, this is quite generic. This looks like it's not talking to me, it's talking to the crowds, and you will fall into the spam trap, right?
Mm-hmm.
So personalization, yeah. I think it's really important, not only for people to take action and to take your message seriously, but also to avoid being marked as spam, which you are effectively when you are blasting out a message to everyone without taking the time to, first of all, understand whether it's a match for that contact. And you're basically wasting everyone's time in order to get heard. So you're considered to be shouting rather than speaking to each and every individual, and you make sure that the message that you want to share really matches them, and then it's up to them whether they want to take the conversation forward.
Yeah, I agree. That's true. I mean, definitely, if you're too general and you're too useless and too irrelevant, it's definitely spam. Of course, you can probably not saying something like, hey, I'm a king of a country X, and give me send me some money, which is actually the spam and super the usual understanding of the spam. But at the same time, if you're super general, super irrelevant, and you try to sell something from step zero and something that I actually don't need, you don't actually understand how we are working, it totally makes sense to consider that as a spam. So I agree with that, but it's already solving even the first two steps, the understanding of your audience, of your ICP, or your ideal customer profile, and understanding on the pains and the problems of this ICP is already solving the spam issue. Yes, sometimes you can probably get better results if you personalize more. Yeah, if you hook more, if you catch more attention, if you send a bit more follow-ups, if you're a bit more creative, that's true, you can get better results. But if you don't have these grounds, like this grounding or this basic stuff, you will just lose. Like you will not have any good results because for you, the cold outreach will become a game of numbers, and you will always just try to add more people because it's too general and you cannot, So yeah, I agree with you.
When it comes to most probably someone who has tried cold outreach, you mentioned this, you briefly mentioned this, not everyone is going to be interested, right? Even if you have like a very good offer, or even if you have carefully selected a very few people, which up to your best knowledge, they really fit and they really match what you have to offer. Not everyone is going to say, yes, I'm interested. So what are kind of like your advice there? Because I feel that when you start cold outreach, we have done it in the past at Early Period. And as I said, not everyone is going to be interested. How long should you wait in order to get results? And what should be like discouraging results or results that you should say, listen, my strategy is clearly not working? Like, what is the ideal, not ideal results, but what are the baseline results that you should look for when you're doing cold outreach?
That's a good question, actually. And to be super, super honest with you, we also need to consider that you are limited with your bandwidth of sending emails or LinkedIn outreach messages is limited. You cannot send like 1 million emails within one day and then take a look at the results next day and say, okay, this subject line doesn't work, or like we A/B tested, the call to action. Okay, this one worked better. Something like this. You cannot do this because you can send too many emails. Of course, you can manage so many different email domains, but you need to warm them up. You need to, when it comes to LinkedIn outreach, you need to have different LinkedIn accounts, and you need to warm them up as well. You still have the limitations of sending connection requests. You cannot send like thousands within one day or something like this. You're limited, and with these limitations, you need to be relevant. What I mean is that when you have those limitations, it means that everyone has those limitations. It's no more the situation when you open your inbox and you're just bombed with millions of cold emails just because everyone couldn't send, I don't know, 5K per day or something like this back in the days. Now it's not this case, right? The same with LinkedIn. Whenever you open LinkedIn, you have less spam messages or less incoming messages from outbound people from called LinkedIn outreach campaigns. You have them less right now than like 5 years ago, because companies like Google and LinkedIn, they're making changes, and that's really important to consider. That's why for you it's always better, because you're limited. For you it's always better to use this opportunity on the maximum level and try to do your job better. I mean, like, you can just test and say, okay, like, let's take a look at the numbers. No, you need to start with a better job. You need to find, to spend a bit more time on the homework and the preparation. It's better to start your outreach campaign like 1 week later, but prepared when you're prepared, unless like comparing to the situation when you're not prepared and just send it. When it comes to the first results and something like this, usually you can get the first result during the first emails and after the first follow-ups. And it's like, if you're prepared pretty well and your message is pretty good, or like good enough, let's say it like this, you can get the first results and the first conversations straight away. The thing that you need to take a look at always is you will be able to take a look at the reply rate, every single tool that shows you this reply rate, but please take a look at the interest rate. How many people out of those who replied are actually interested in talking to you and saying to you, yeah, totally makes sense, let's discuss it. And if you see that, the reply rate is pretty high, but at the same time, nobody's interested in what you're saying, probably you're doing something wrong. That's A. I mean, and after 2 or 3 weeks, you can already make those decisions because you sent, already 1,000 emails during like 3 weeks or 4 weeks, 1,000 people. It's already enough to say something. That's A. And B, you can already make so many decisions. So for example, you are sending cold emails and your open rate is super low. I mean, like around 40% or less, around 50% or less. It just means that you either found really bad email list and your bounce rate is high, but if your bounce rate is not that high, probably you have some issues with your email domain or an email reputation. So your emails are going to spam, right? If you have the issue with, I don't know, if people reply to you, but interest rate is actually 0, it just means that you probably like don't use the right words and probably don't refer to the right problem that people have. And take a look at the nature of why do people reply to you now. Probably it's not right now. For some use cases, for when you work with bigger companies and try to pitch and outreach to bigger companies, they have yearly contracts. and they probably have already the yearly contract with someone, with the vendor, like with the software. They're already paying for this, and they don't want to switch it right now because the cost of switch will be super, super high for them, and they cannot pitch it to their financial department. That's why, okay, it's reasonable and it's understandable that, okay, they say no because of this reason, but the pain is correct, the pitch is correct. Just continue doing that, because for some people, you will still catch those who actually, have this issue right now. But if you see that people say, yeah, I don't have this issue, sorry, go somewhere, then probably you need to make some decisions. Usually 3 weeks, and it's enough fully to make the first decisions about what should we do next.
Yeah, when we tried cold emailing for early period, our goal was to get a conversation going. So, excuse me, the idea was to get people to reply to us, not just saying yes or no or something like when sometimes you see campaigns where say reply with this word. Not that. We wanted to kind of like get the person intrigued in our message. So we kind of like provided, say, hey, we're in referral marketing, we can help you with this. We've seen this. So we did personalization as you advised. But we wanted people to reply to us and kind of like give us a little bit more info, whether it's a match and why it's a match for them. And then eventually our target was to get to hop on a call with them, because we wanted to understand even better their pain point, how we can serve it, and what level of service we wanted to provide them with, whether it's the software or whether it's the coaching program, our high ticket program. So that was our goal. But up to this day, I don't know whether it's the right strategy to use. So my first question is this: someone who's selling low ticket programs or software or info product, is cold emailing the right strategy to apply? And the second question, if you have like an ascending value ladder, so you have a low ticket, medium ticket, and even high ticket program, right, to sell, should you pitch someone to buy at least the micro offer that you have in your cold email? Or should you get a conversation going and get to understand whether it's a match, and we basically employ the same strategy that we did in the past? What is your opinion there?
Okay, it's to be super, super easy when it comes to self-service or some really low ticket or something like this. Just doesn't make sense to send cold emails, because you cannot really scale it pretty well. It still feels super spammy, and you cannot handle replies. It's not that easy. It's always much better to invest in content, in SEO, in content distribution, probably doing some retargeting and remarketing, probably even experiment with paid ads, which is pretty good, and invest in inbound marketing more than outbound. When it comes to mid enterprise level, which totally makes sense. So for example, for us, we have a few types of clients. We have small clients, like people who are just using, one seat at Expondi, they're using it for themselves, or really, really small startups. It doesn't make sense for us to make the outreach for them, because we spend too much time on finding these contacts, so we spend too much time on writing emails, and so of course we send the email, and then the person replies to us, but the person buys one seat, and unit economics doesn't work in this case. Just it's the wrong way. When it comes to bigger clients, you have a team of 30 people, 40 people, 60 people for your software. Okay, for you, it's a big client. Totally makes sense to start doing that, to start doing the outreach. And can you sell something from the first email, from the first follow up or something like this? Can you sell something to the team of 60 people, to the team of 50 people, to can you sell something like this? No, you cannot. You always need to have the conversation. So my answer is, it totally makes sense to start selling in cold emails whenever it comes to small price range, but it just doesn't make sense to send cold emails in this case. But in a higher list, higher price and so on and so forth, it doesn't make sense to sell in emails. It makes sense to start the conversation, but you really need to send cold emails to start the conversations with them. So you see what I mean? This logic. So low price, just don't send cold emails. It will not work. It's better invest in content marketing or something like this. Higher level tickets, definitely invest in cold emailing, cold LinkedIn outreach. Totally makes sense, but never try to sell something. Don't send it to your Stripe link. Always have the conversation.
Yeah, that we figured that out. So we were using cold outreach to get more connections, to expand our network, then eventually to sell, because that was the end game. But the idea was to get the contact in, to get the person through the door, to get the conversation going. And then eventually, if it made sense and if we got the right signals, right, the person is showing interest in what we have to offer, then eventually we sell. I still, to this day, I still receive a lot of cold outreach on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I'm very active on Facebook, and also via email. That immediately, as soon as they, do a friend request, they send you like, "Hey, do you want to buy my 10K program?" As if someone is going to invest like 10K with someone who you don't know, and you don't know whether the person is a real person or it's like impersonating someone else. So yeah, that is something really important. But I still to this day keep seeing this mistake. But I wanted to pick your brain regarding that. One final question. So you have worked in the past in cold outreach, and the main focus at Lemlist was email cold outreach. Now you're working for a company which is helping your clients with LinkedIn cold outreach. Do you think that someone looking into, going all in on cold outreach, they should do it from the first day, like omni-channel, multi-channel? What do you think is the best strategy? Should you employ, like, say, okay, I'm gonna reach out to this contact by email first and then LinkedIn and then switch back to email, or do both at the same time? What do you think? What's the best strategy there?
Yeah. Actually, I do believe that the more channels you use, it's like the better results you get. That's true. At the same time, you still need to be polite, relevant, useful, valuable, all those stuff. We consider this. If you're not relevant, if you're not valuable, and if you're, just a weird stranger, like people who are writing to you, then like it doesn't matter how many channels do you use, right? You're using to blah blah blah, all this stuff. It just will not work. When it comes to relevant, valuable cold outreach game, yes, it definitely makes sense to use several channels. Right now at Xmoney, we have the email builder, like a smart builder, where you can send LinkedIn outreach, then like their recent post or leave a comment on their LinkedIn post in order to increase the visibility of yourself in front of their eyes, and then send the cold email. It's already not cold, but like more warm email, but still like the email. And then you send the follow-up on LinkedIn, and then one more email or something like this. Yes, and as a result, it shows better results. Like at the end of the day, you get better results. That's definitely true. At the same time, for some use cases, people can even add more channels. So for example, if you're reaching out to people from the Slack like community, right? If you're part of Slack community, Scripts Slack community, you can send messages on LinkedIn, you can send messages on email, and within the same week send the Slack messages to those people. You can do this within Expandy, but you can do it using like external tools, like some extra growth hacking ways to do this. And as a result, you get even better results. Or sometimes when you send the campaign and you have more than one salesperson, like 5 salespeople who are sending cold emails or cold LinkedIn outreach campaigns as well, you can scrape people's personal emails and use it in your Facebook retargeting and Twitter retargeting, and people start seeing your ads. And this is, of course, not the ABM approach, but it's something, more ABM-y in this cold outreach world when you are still working on the mass level. Because, for example, when you work with a super enterprise market, sometimes it's just better to send emails and LinkedIn outreach personally, manually, no automation, because you're working with a specific person, specific. When it comes to, more mass market cold outreach, as we say, like this mid-range price, you can experiment with a lot of things, but usually more channels you use, it's better. The only problem is sometimes it's becoming hard to implement it. That's why we implement it within one software, like the LinkedIn and the email. With some other platforms, it's even harder to implement. So sometimes just my tip and my recommendation is try with one super soon, like during 1 week when you see that okay, or like during first weeks when you understand okay, your templates are working, your audience is correct, then spend a bit more time to set up a multi-channel outreach. Because I hate when you build something and you never launch something, right? Because you want to create the perfect campaign, perfect strategy, and you never launch it. So it's better to start with only one channel and only one approach, and then test it, and then you see that okay, it's working, and then upgrade it and uplevel it and level this up, and make the more advanced version of this by adding an extra channel. And after that, okay, if you see that it's already working even better, then add one more channel, and then one more channel, one more approach, one more step. For example, like add like their recent LinkedIn post and see how it's working and whether it's making your conversion rates better. So I would say omni-channel, multi-channel approach, definitely yes. Is it from the day zero? I would say no. But once you understand that, okay, your templates are working, your campaign right now, it's working, it's performing, then yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Something that you mentioned, and I promise this is going to be the final question because I want to respect your time. You mentioned ChatGPT and the AI, and that you have done some experiments there. What's the outcome of these experiments? Can it help in your cold outreach? There's a lot of updates, a lot of new things coming up in the AI space, which is really awesome. But can it really help when it comes to cold outreach?
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to GPT and AI, we need to divide it. Like we have GPT and we have some AI tools. There are already a lot of AI tools who can help you with writing your cold emails, with finding hooks, icebreakers, and so on and so forth. There are so many of them on the market, and they are like people already use it for a few years. It's of course it's on hype right now because GPT is on hype, but people already used it in the past. I mean, and when it comes to this thing, I would recommend you to try and use it because probably in the majority of cases, your results will be at least not worse. Like at least they will be like okay, or sometimes even better that you have right now, which the tools like SmartWriter, I know, and some other tools who are helping you with writing emails, right? That's A. But when it comes to GPT, this is a super tricky question because whenever it comes to GPT and the hype around it, we need to understand the limitations of GPT, right? The first thing is that it does not have access to super relevant data and super fresh data. And that's true. And B, we need to understand that it's not easy for GPT to scrape, for example, LinkedIn and other, not like GPT cannot scrape. The third thing is it doesn't have like access to LinkedIn. So whenever you say, hey, can you please say where Ilya Azovtsev is working based on his LinkedIn? He is working at Expand in real life, but GPT will tell you that Ilya is working somewhere else. The reason is like it's not perfect in terms of like within the links and taking a look at the results like within that link. So considering all those limitations, you cannot use GPT right now as your sales assistant in the way you used to, right? You have data researchers, sales engineers, all those people who are finding the information for you for cold emails, so like outbound lead generation and so forth. You give them the task, hey, I need like 50 companies who just raised money and they are, I need to find the personalization hooks and something like this. And your team will do a better job rather than GPT because GPT cannot, find this information. But and that's A. And B, when it comes to writing text, like writing cold emails, writing LinkedIn outreach, like writing something, it can do a good job, but it's not that easy as well because by default, it's writing shitty emails, super general emails, and so on and so forth. You need to, you know, you need to use some fundamentals of prompt engineering to get the results you want to get, right? So you need to say, hey, please act as the salesperson who's working in this specific area for 10 years and try to write the pitch and the hook to this audience. Please use your first line super catchy. The call to action should be clear. The explanation should be about them, not about myself, right? All this stuff. You need to use like a pretty cool, prompt engineering framework in order to get the results you want to get. It's not that easy. Probably sometimes it's for people, it's just easier to write the email for themselves, right? But this whole GPT thing is pretty cool whenever you give extra information. And I'm writing a lot about this right now on the blog about, okay, how can we give GPT more information so we can get results even better? For example, how can we scrape some people and know my mutual connections, at the same time know the country where they're from, and know something else. And for example, based on the country, say hi. Just for example, okay, you're from Italy, we'll say ciao. If you're from Ukraine, we'll say привет, and so on and so forth. If you're from UK, we'll say hey, and so on and so forth. And GPT can do this. I mean, like, easily. And then based on the mutual connections or the amount of mutual connections, we also can say something like, for example, hey, we have so many, we have more than 150 mutual connections. I took a look at everyone, and then I thought, okay, why we're not connected? It's so weird. Because like, I even saw your content on LinkedIn, especially your last post about XYZ was pretty cool. That's why I decided to reach out to you directly. By the way, I took a look at what you are doing at company. Guys, you're pretty awesome. But are you currently doing XYZ? And you're talking about the pain. You can do this with GPT, but for this, you need to you need to, feed GPT with a lot of extra information. Yeah, and I'm writing a lot about this because right now, without the screenshots, it's not that easy to explain what exactly do I mean.
Yeah, but it's good to know that you're kind of like experimenting with this, and most probably in a couple of months, this is gonna improve, and it's gonna prove to be quite a valuable tool to use even in cold outreach, as it is at the moment for other jobs like writing emails, as you mentioned. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I would like to wrap this up and thank you for for sharing this different insights about different things and about your extensive experience in cold outreach. I'm really grateful that you have shared this time with me. So thank you, thanks for sharing. And I'm pretty sure that our community is going to find this conversation really, really useful.